Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to Tube Investments Q1 FY22 earnings conference call hosted by IIFL Securities Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star and 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Anupam Gupta. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
And welcome everyone to the conference call for Tube Investments. We have the entire management team.
Your voice is breaking.
Yeah. Is it better? Hello. Yeah.
Yes, sir. This is better now. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So, welcome everyone for the Tube Investments first quarter conference call. We have the entire management team for Tube Investments with us for the call, including Mr. Vellayan Subbiah, Mr. Arun Murugappan, the CFO, Mr. Mahendra Kumar, and all the chief business heads, including Mr. Mahesh Ahuja, Mr. K.K. Paul, and Mr. K.R. Srinivasan. For the opening remarks, I'll hand it over to Mr. Vellayan Subbiah, post which we can take the Q&A. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Anupam, and good morning, everybody. Just to go through, the board met on June 30th, 2021. I'll just quickly take you through the standalone results for the quarter, and then we can talk about individual businesses. The revenue for the first quarter was 1,257 crores. There's no point in actually comparing with the same quarter last year because of that COVID quarter. Even this time we got hit by COVID, and it did affect us significantly in April and May. So which is why the numbers are obviously kind of a bit lower than what we would have expected them to be. PBT before exceptional items was at 130 crores. ROIC was at, the annualized ROIC was at 41%. And free cash flow actually for the quarter was negative at 134 crores. Basically because inventory levels went up significantly due to unexpected lockdown conditions in May, and the creditors had to be paid for the agreed terms. NWC should improve this quarter. So, in terms of reportable segments, and now we're following this Ind AS 108 here. Engineering, the segment comprises of cold roll, steel strips, and precision steel tubes, CDW and ERW both. The revenue was at 815 for the quarter, and PBIT was at 83 crores. Metal form product, this comprises automotive chains, fine blanking, stamped products, roll form car door frames, and cold roll formed sections for railways and passenger coaches. Revenue here was 245 crores, and PBIT was 26 crores. Mobility, which is standard bicycles, special bicycles including alloy bikes, fitness equipment, and the three-wheeler electric vehicles when we start making them. That division had a revenue of 172 crores, and PBIT was at 7 crores. The other segment comprises of industrial chains and new businesses. Here the revenue was at 88 crores, and the PBIT was at 10 crores. In terms of consolidated results, which obviously includes both Shanthi Gears and CGI and CG Power now, revenue was 2,437 crores, and PBT was 185 crores. CG, where we have a 53% stake, has a consolidated revenue of 1,050, and PBT for the quarter was at 75 crores. Shanthi Gears, we had a revenue of 67, and PBT for the quarter was at 12 crores. Commenting on the financial results, Mr. M.A.M. Arunachalam, Chairman TII, said, TII has delivered healthy performance for the quarter despite partial disruption in the operations in some of the businesses of the company due to the impact of second wave of the COVID pandemic. The company witnessed good demand in the engineering and metal form products business. The signs of exports are encouraging with the opening of overseas markets. With revival of the operations, we expect momentum to pick up in coming months. So that's a quick take on numbers for the quarter and results. So we'd be happy to turn it over, Anupam, to the audience for questions, and we've got your whole team here, like you said. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and two. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may please press star and one at this time. First question is from the line of Abhishek Ghosh from DSP Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, sir. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So just wanted to understand in terms of this quarter, how many days we had the impact of shutdown because of the lockdown, because of the southern unit?
I'd say we lost, in terms of, actually this time a lot of the companies were much better prepared for lockdown than last year. But if you see what was happening, I would say in some cases like anywhere between like 20 to 40 days is what the total loss was.
Okay. Because there is coming from, sir, is that despite that, if I look at the engineering division kind of revenues, right, on a 2-year CAGR basis and not on a YY because it's not comparable, you've still done a very good job. You've still grown at about 10-11% CAGR. If on a 3-year basis also there's a strong growth. While predominantly your key sector, which is auto, is still not back to those levels. So is it because of inflation? Is it because of market share gains, exports, new product? If you can just help us understand that aspect.
Yeah, I'd like Mukesh talk more. Definitely exports has been the biggest focus area and biggest growth area in the first quarter. A lot of the loss in demand from auto has been pushed towards exports, though there was also good demand from auto. But that is the quick take, but I'll let Mukesh talk more as well.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Like you rightly explained, sir, this growth in the engineering division is coming with a mixture of exports, which we are participating and working it almost now from last 3 to 5 years' time, which has started giving the results. Exports is a key growth driver and which will remain the driver going forward for the growth. And in the domestic market also, we have gained shares in this COVID period. And third is little bit part what you rightly mentioned is coming out of again inflation. Even the inflation has to get factored fully in the revenues, but small portion has got Q1 also. It's a mixture of all three, but predominantly it is coming from exports and the gain in market share.
Okay. And what would be exports as a part of the revenues today of engineering division?
This quarter it is high. It is close to 18%.
Okay. And just one more question from my side. If we see gross margins in last 2 quarters, obviously has seen some moderation because of the inflation and you would have to kind of negotiate with the customers and pass it on. So where do you see that path of that gross margin kind of coming back and how should we kind of look at it? If you can just help us understand with that.
Yeah. So, how I mentioned in the earlier calls, it may not be appropriate to see gross margins quarter by quarter because there will be some timing difference between the steel price increases or timing of recovery. So we should rather see it on a long-term basis, maybe an annual basis.
So, but one way to look at it is if commodity prices stick with where they are now, right?
Yeah.
Then the current levels will be more indicative. Right? Obviously, we will work on improvements to kind of basically push that number further. But that would be kind of the broad thing, right? So, current levels plus, if steel prices stick, because otherwise the denominator effect on that was huge, the fact that, the prices went up so much. So, I just think obviously we are working more to kind of work on the efficiency side and all that a lot more. But that aside, I think that, kind of the current levels are indicative, but it might go up a bit.
Okay. Very helpful. Thank you so much. And just one last question from the annual report, the flavor of the report was that there's a lot of focus, and which you've been mentioning, a lot of focus on export, Russia, US, Europe, you've seemed to add a lot of customers, plus the IRIS certification for railway opportunity. So, will you also have to incur a lot of capex now, to kind of seed those markets and the certification that you have got to be able to grow those markets? If you can just help us with that, and how big are those opportunities? Thanks.
Yeah. So I don't think that there's significant, capex. So if, for example, if you see what the engineering folks did on their stabilizer bar, that mill, hopefully we will commission, in this quarter. And so that is a capex that has been incurred and will allow us to kind of significantly improve our export capability on that side. Even mobility, for example, is beginning to look at exports in a pretty big way. And that doesn't require huge capexes, but there are some smaller capexes there. So I don't think it's capex intensive because a lot of the capacity is there. It's more kind of, enhancing that capacity for certain kinds of products. So at this stage, it's not requiring kind of totally new greenfield production facilities to drive that. But definitely that focus is there for us and will continue over the next couple of years.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Abhishek.
Thank you. Any participants who wish to ask a question, then please press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Suraj Nawandhar from Sampada Investments. Please go ahead.
Hello, good morning, sir. So my question was more of related to the CG Power. So how are we seeing demand on the ground after the second wave of the COVID?
Yeah, again, broadly, like we've indicated before, we don't want too many CG Power questions here. We've already said that after that October timeframe, CG Power will start having its own investor calls. But to your question, there has been a tremendous demand on kind of in all of the businesses. So they have seen good demand growth, whether it's the motors business, switchgear and transformers. I think the switchgear and transformers, the demand for CG is driven both by supply and demand issues, right? Because other supply has gotten reduced, and the railways business as well. So all the businesses are seeing good demand.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from the line of Niket Shah from Motilal Oswal AMC. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity and congratulations on the good set of numbers. So first question was, if you can just give us some sense that when do you think your optic lens business will go live? I think in the annual report it's already highlighted the plant is up and ready. So when can we see the plant going live, and what kind of revenue should one really think of in the next 2 years?
Yeah, so basically all of the, so the lens facility is live now. There's only one production process that's still kind of being piloted. All the other processes are live. But like we told you, this was kind of more of a pilot project, right? So the revenue from this is fairly small because here the capacity is only 500,000 lenses a month, which will only get us to 6 million lenses a year. So that's fairly small. Now what we're doing is readying kind of, the plan for expansion, which is what will give us kind of more capacity. That plan is what is getting worked on now. So I'd say at the current levels, it will not have a significant impact on revenue or numbers. This was more to prove out that we can in fact make these lenses in India, which we're getting more confidence on at this moment.
Understood, sir. Understood. The second question was, again, if I have to look at your annual report, you've highlighted that a lot of niche applications within the engineering business on the driveline, ride control, suspension applications. Also, within metal form business, we've launched engine oil. So if you can just help us understand that obviously these might be very, very smaller in terms of revenues, but what is the contribution today coming from these new product launches, and what is the thought process here within each of these segments?
Yeah, see, I like we said before, right? What you're seeing and what you have to see at an aggregate level is that there are, again, if we take it back to TI1, TI2, TI3, what you're talking about is the new areas that are getting introduced by TI1 itself, right? So, for example, in TI1, if engineering decides to get into stabilizer bar, or if the auto chains distribution guys decide to get into engine oil, that's a call that the individual business unit is taking, right? Why are the business units taking that call? Because they're basically seeing what can they do to basically improve their revenue growth rate to get to their target, right? So actually, you see the encouraging sign there is if you take a business like Auto Chain, because of the shift to aftermarket kits and through some of these new products, that business has seen significant growth, right? And it's been seen both revenue growth and margin growth. And it's gone from, I would say, kind of almost 0% to close to 10%, in terms of both revenue and margin growth. So I think that is where it's encouraging. Those numbers don't show up in any kind of aggregated fashion. I mean, in a sense, like those numbers show up, in the individual BU count. So nowhere do we count separately what happened with that new initiative, right? Or stabilizer bars not pulled out separately on the BU count. So that's how we view those. And it's absolutely fair that each of them think of those their own individual organic growth kind of thing. So those aren't things that we kind of either monitor at an aggregated level, see how much should they add for the overall company.
Got it. And one final question on the EV three-wheeler venture that we have planned. So where are we in terms of a capacity, and when do we see the plan going live?
Why don't I let Paul, who's also on the call, answer that?
Sure, sir.
Good morning to all of you. Paul here. I think we're working around that, and in the first quarter of next year, we should see the launch of the product. In terms of this, COVID has put 1 or 2 months, has put us behind by a month or two, but we are working around that, and hopefully, by the first quarter of next year, we should be in a position to launch the product.
And so, would it be possible for you to quantify the capacity or something?
So capacities we are looking at short and long. So we are, building up that capacity. But to answer your question, really the plans that we have made, capacity should not be an issue. That's the way that we have planned the capacity on the first phase.
Got it. And so just one more clarification on the engineering part of the business. There was this anti-dumping duty in US which you had represented. So is there clarity that now it's completely off and we can do export to US without any CVD or ADD?
Yeah, it is almost clarified, and we have got a favorable verdict on that. So that's why we are going to see some kind of significant growth in US exports all going forward.
Okay, perfect. That's very helpful. Thank you so much and best of luck, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may please press star and 1 at this time. The next question is from the line of Vimal Gohil from Union AMC. Please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity, sir, and congratulations on a very good set of numbers. Sir, my question was on the optic lens business. Just wanted one clarity. So basically, when you say the lenses, which industries are we sort of catering to? What is the end user base? What does the end user base look like over there?
This is predominantly for the automotive industry. So they go into automotive cameras.
Automotive cameras. Got it. And sir, what is the market size like? Overall market size? Would you be able to sort of highlight that?
KRS, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah. The ADAS space is quite expanding and progressing. So it is actually a huge market globally for these lenses, though it has not significantly increased in India. What we are targeting is the exports market, particularly in Korea and Japan. But what we have started is only a pilot project. Maybe in the quarters to come, we need to invest in expansion and then look at the bigger numbers.
Fair enough, sir. If I may try my luck, if you could just highlight some, give us some quantification on how much money are we sort of looking to invest in this venture. Would that be possible, sir?
Not determined yet.
Fair enough. Sir, my second question was just I missed out on your clarification on gross margin. So we were a tad above 40, 41, 42 in our peak. So I guess you gave some clarification there, but my question was, do we sort of post, assuming that, commodity cycles will sort of normalize or reverse, do we expect, Tube to sort of get back to, and I'm talking standalone, do we expect Tube to sort of get back to those 40, 41 plus levels going forward?
Yeah, correct. Hopefully, slight improvement from where we are right now. That's what Mr. Vellayan was explaining.
Right. No, so what I was asking is, do we get back to our historical levels, assuming that commodity sort of the pressure ease?
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. And you also said that if I'm not mistaken, you said that the working capital was slightly high this quarter and should normalize going forward, right?
Correct.
Fair enough. Thank you so much, sir.
In Q2, but yeah, Q2 should see improvement.
Great. That is great to hear. Thank you so much, sir, and all the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to our participants, if you wish to ask a question, please press star and 1. Our next question is from the line of Anupam Gupta. Please go ahead.
Yeah, morning, sir. A few questions on each of the segments. So firstly, on the metal form products, have you seen any improvement on the railway side yet, or it is still very, very muted?
KRS?
Yes. See, railway, predominantly we supply to the coach factories. So coach factories, because of lockdown, first quarter was affected. They did not, increase the production. They were going slowly. Second quarter looks better, and we hope things would streamline by third quarter.
Okay. And just continuing on that question, do we have pass-throughs for raw material for railway coach as well, the sections which we supply there, for the raw materials?
Sorry, your voice is breaking. Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah. So what I was asking is, for the railway supplies also, do we have pass-through for the raw materials where we have seen price increases?
No, there is no raw material availability concern, but price increase concerns are there for raw material of railways also, because predominantly we use stainless steel for railways. So there is a concern on price increases, but otherwise most of the orders are covered by price variation clauses. So there may not be big concern in recovery of raw material prices.
Okay. Yeah. Understand, sir. The second question is related to the engineering product segment. In the annual report and in the call starting, you said that you have seen some market share gain. So which product areas has this market share gain happened in? If you can just give some color there.
Okay.
Yeah. Like we shared in the earlier call, maybe let's say we generally don't discuss on the market share segmentation part this thing, but if you see, predominantly we are maybe let's say present in the auto sector, in particularly in auto sector, which is a combination of your two-wheeler, CV and CV. Across the segments, we are seeing there is a gain in shares.
Okay. And just continuing there, sir, I think the near-term outlook, at least for autos domestically, specifically two-wheelers, is not very, very great given the inventory levels which are there. So how do you see in terms of, let's say, next few quarters for the auto, the engineering product segment going to the two-wheeler side?
Let's see, maybe it's anybody's guess, but the festival season is nearing it out, and the projections being given is surely it is going to be much better than as compared to Q1.
Okay. And just one last question on the cycles business. So this quarter, obviously, there was some slowdown versus fourth quarter, and I think there was some impact of the lockdown. But as of now, what do you see there? The growth should remain elevated for the next few, let's say, at least for the near term, and then normalize, or how are you looking at the cycles business side?
Paul?
Yeah, good morning. I think in the first quarter, as you rightly pointed out, we had issues of lockdown and therefore, closure of market, and that is reflected in our revenue, that we had in the first quarter. But moving forward, the plans that we have made for Q2 and Q3 should be at least better than Q1, based on, the markets opening up and situation remain a little stable. because, as we move forward, there are various kinds of news on, stage 3 of COVID, and therefore we don't really know about the market opening and different closes. But the internal plans that we have drawn up is to look at how we can gain share if the market remains flat, and what are the various steps that we have to do to, product intervention, through market intervention, through distribution intervention, through digital interventions, and so on and so forth. So we're quite upbeat about the next 2 quarters in terms of, moving forward for ourselves. While the market may not overall show very big pickup based on the demand as we are currently seeing.
Okay. And so just one question continuing there. In the annual report, you mentioned that export share within cycles is close to about 11% in FY21. Over the medium term, let's say, how high are you targeting this to go? And apart from the China plus one factor in terms of sourcing, what else will drive that gain in export share overall?
I think there are 2-3 factors that will drive. One is building our internal capability to compete in different markets of export, which we are doing. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is we will drive the exports further up, based on what we do and how the customers respond. We should be enhancing our export in the overall pie. This is what I can tell you at the moment. Lots of plans are being made in terms of the premiumization of products are happening. A lot more foray into, we are ourselves getting into some of these initiatives so that we can manage the supply chain portion, of the business. And with that, I think we hopefully will give a much better account of ourselves as we move forward on exports.
Sure, sir. Sounds good. I'm done for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Kashyap from Theleme Partners. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Good morning to everyone at TI. Just one question, Mr. Vellayan, slightly high level in terms of thought process. How do you see the trajectory of businesses under TI1 over a 3 to 5 year time frame? Would you we've discussed this, the trajectory earlier. Do you think that incrementally going forward you see the trajectory going upwards, or do you think we would be at the same point where we used to originally think about it at?
Kashyap, thanks for the question. So I think if you ask us right now, I don't know, the world seems to be in a very optimistic mood, okay, at least from as far as we can tell, right? So if you see what's happening, engineering kind of, has a new kind of very promising, product line, and it's seeing very good demand from the exports, which we see can be sustained due to both China plus one and global steel price levels. But also the fact that there's new product capability. So for different markets, there's different kind of approaches that the engineering team is taking. So that in itself can lead to good growth numbers in that business. The metal form products business, like we said, the individual areas are looking at new avenues for growth. And then in mobility, again, there appears to be a lot of export-led growth opportunity for that business. And that's what Paul was just alluding to earlier to that question. Yeah. If you look at those 3 things combined, then actually, what you would hope for is that the TI1 growth number, revenue growth number, would actually be higher than what we thought what it was historically going to be, right? So that's our current take on the business.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's our current thesis, right? So that's where we are.
Yeah, no, I thought about it similarly, hence I thought to ask that question. That's all from my side. Wish you guys all the best and look forward to meeting you soon.
Thanks, Kashyap.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sundar Sriram from Sundaram Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, good morning. This is Shyam from Sundaram Mutual. Just a couple of questions here. Hi, sir. what will be the average utilization in engineering and metal forming in this quarter Q1 as compared to Q4? Just trying to understand how are we placed from an utilization perspective in Q1.
See, we had lockdown affected, but again, Mukesh and KRS can give the answers.
KRS here, let me answer that. Shyam, there was an effect because of lockdown, but notwithstanding that, the OEMs have really shown some promise, both two-wheeler and four-wheeler, in terms of pushing up their numbers. I would say we sort of utilized to about 75 to 80% of our capacities. Okay. It will be later part of the quarter.
Okay. Understood. Okay, that is helpful. Okay. So we still have a 20% gap room in terms of the to improve the utilization before any need for fresh capex per se. And that is a fair assumption here.
Yeah, you're right. We have capacity to take care of the increase in demand in the coming quarters.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here, what will be the peak utilizations we can reach in the engineering segment and the metal forming, sir? Any ballpark numbers you can share? Can we go to 90%, 95%, or is 90% sort of the peak utilization numbers we can run at?
Shyam, regarding engineering business, we have a good advantage because over a period of time we have created plants in all the regions like north, west, and in south as well as Tirupati. And why we have tried, let's say our part of strategy 3 years back, what we shared in the investor call, we are trying to build a common capabilities across the plant. That gives us a good headroom. Maybe let's say at that time, sometimes north will not be doing well or west will not be doing that. So interchangeability of the plant is really becoming handy for us to cater to the different market needs. And barring, let's say, whatever the 10-20 days we lost in the month of May, apart from that, we are operating at a ballpark number around 85%. And we also have a fairly robust process. We look forward for next 2 years and we take the actions, particularly in advance, how the market projections are there. We have a fair robust process on that, and we take an appropriate call on the capacity expansion wherever is required pretty much in advance. So at any point of time, to cater to even fluctuation in the demand by 20% plus or minus, we all are geared up to handle that.
Understood. Thanks for that. So just for follow up on that, so we had indicated a capex of close to 250 odd crores for this fiscal year, of which you had said the bulk of this, around 200 crores, maybe towards the three-wheeler vehicles therein. Any change in terms of the capex numbers for this year, or any perspective that you can share on other than the EV three-wheeler division, where anywhere else we would want to spend more capex per se?
Yeah, at the total level it will be around that only, 250 crores only. In addition to the EV project, we will also be spending some amount to expand capacities in tubes and also in auto chain.
Okay, understood. So just one last question. Metal forming, from a margin perspective, has held up. EBIT margins has held up pretty well, despite the drop in volumes per se. Is that due to the mix within the division, railways going down, or is there any initiatives that we have taken that has contributed to this margins being slightly resilient than what one would have expected per se in metal forming?
Yeah, one is of course the actions which we are taking for margin improvements have results. But the second thing is there are also certain price recoveries for inflation during Q1.
Okay. Understood. So this other segment will include industrial chains, because that segment seems to have improved sequentially. So the chains has contributed to this, or that lens pilot project has started playing out, and so there is a sequential improvement in the other segment revenues?
No, it's mainly because the industrial chains is now grouped under others. We have taken it out of metal form products and grouped it under others along with the new business. But it's mainly about industrial chains.
So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sundar from Spark Capital. Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. Thanks for the opportunity. My first question is with regards to a couple of resolutions that were passed yesterday on the week Friday on the AGM. One was to do with the investment of about 2 crores into Watson Infrabuild. The other was at 25 crores into innovative research. So first, let's start with this 25 crores of innovative research. So what does this pertain to? Is it out of the normal business course? So what are we looking here, sir?
So, Sundar, thanks. So broadly, like we articulated, this will be for TI2 investment. TI2, the approach we've taken, we said that this would be more like VC style investment. What we've been looking at is kind of several different platforms that we think can be growth platforms for TI in the future. Amongst those, kind of we are studying and we are working, to study, I would say 4 platforms that we see as interesting. One of those is this whole area of kind of, environment and sustainability. So the idea with the 25 crores is that we would make smaller bets in companies and take a percentage of an existing company with the intent of then being involved with that company's growth, where we can bring some value to the table, but also help the entrepreneurs basically drive their business. These are, of course, riskier bets, with more like VC-like style payoffs versus having, kind of a very fixed kind of payoff schedule. But the intent is that we use this from TI's perspective to get into some of these areas in which we don't have capability sets right now. Because clearly developing capability sets in an organic fashion will be more difficult.
Vellayan, would you be able to further elaborate on what are those 4 areas, the 4 platforms that you're looking beyond environmental sustainability, the other 3 if you can?
It's basically medical devices and it's this optics and electronics. Those are the areas that we've looked at kind of initially. That doesn't mean those are the only 4 we will explore.
And I presume you will be spearheading this project.
Sorry?
You will be heading this project.
No. I'm not heading anything. I don't do any work over here. No, what we do is kind of different people get involved. Like I said, in one situation, we are using a consulting firm to help us. But different people get involved and then, usually the division head will take ownership of the projects fairly early.
Fair enough. Well, the second question out here was that I know you're not getting into CG4, you don't want to answer much out of it, but from the time we took over in last December to now, there were 3 parameters to be drawn. 1 in terms of revenue, the 2 in terms of supplier relationships, 3 in terms of the net liability. How have we progressed and where do you think we should look at it going forward?
Like I said, let's not get too much into this thing here. You can see where it's tracking in terms of the overall numbers. And obviously, there are a lot of disclosures. So if you actually just kind of read all of the disclosures, both that was there in the annual report at the TI console level, but also even in our quarterly statements, there are a lot of disclosures that if you just read, you'll get a sense of how each of the situations is resolving along those 3 lines. The revenue side, you can definitely see the traction basically in terms of the quarterly numbers itself. I think most of that data is out there. So rather than kind of get into it on this call, it's better when we start doing the quarterly calls there post the October quarter. That will be a better time to do it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is a follow-up question from the line of Vimal Gohil from Union AMC. Please go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, sir, for the follow-up. So just wanted to get your sense on, how much out of our total product basket specifically for automotives, how much of it would be sort of engine agnostic and how much of it will be sort of directly dependent on ICE, which will get impacted especially in electric two-wheelers, post the proliferation of electric two-wheelers going forward?
Yeah, at the total level, it's not going to be a significant shift for us. There are certain businesses which will be impacted more. For instance, you see the auto chain segment. We have drive chains and cam chains. Cam chains will have some kind of impact because of EVs. Drive chains are expected to continue. Similarly, in engineering business also there may be some minor impact, but at the total level it's not going to be significant.
Right. And chains, the chains that you mentioned, that the cam chains, those are not a very big portion of your total overall automotive chain portfolio. Would that understanding be right?
Yeah, not very significant. Yeah.
Got it. Fair enough, sir. Thank you so much.
And in any case, aftermarket will continue for much longer.
Got it, sir. Got it. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next question is a follow-up question from the line of Abhishek Ghosh from DSP Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, sir. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Abhishek, your voice is breaking, Abhishek. We are not able to hear you clearly.
Hello. Is it better now?
Slightly better, but
Hello?
still there's a break. Request you to please come in a network area.
Okay. Just allow me a minute. Hello. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. So, sir, if we just go through the annual report again, we see a lot of newer segments like Metro Rail as a new opportunity, seating solutions, new products like the safety critical products, the cranes and the hoist, all these things which are part of TI1 itself. So you think all these newer products, newer opportunities which has got added in TI from the last cycle of FY19, is it fair to assume that you've added a new opportunity size of another $1 billion over these newer products, or how should one look at the overall opportunity size that has got added into TI1 because of these new products?
Yeah, it's a slightly difficult number to estimate.
Already there?
Yeah. See, basically, if you take things like stabilizer bar, for example, it's a significant opportunity to look at it globally. And as we go segment by segment, right? There are definitely things that kind of are significant if you look at the opportunity globally, including the kinds of cycles now that Paul is making and kind of beginning to export. But I don't think we've ever gone through the exercise. So I guess the quick answer is I don't know, man. All I'm saying is kind of it does push the growth rate of those businesses from that organic level that we thought would be 5 to 7. It can push it up from there. But the quick answer to your question is I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough. And so the other question is also now in the two-wheeler space, at least the expected shift to EV is much faster there. So how are you kind of, engaging with probably the newer OEMs and the products for the same? Any thoughts around that if you can share?
Yeah, so I'd say it's still early days. We're exploring it, kind of, there are two schools out there, right? That, kind of, I think now everything is, it's Bhavish and Ola said that it's going to accelerate, then everybody's reading the newspapers and saying that all the IC two-wheelers will be gone. Interesting. I don't know. I mean, like with this level of subsidies over time, and the fact that, see, the bigger question is this, right? Which is both Ola and Ather seem to be losing a lot of money on their two-wheelers, and will be losing. It's estimated that Ola will be losing some fairly significant numbers per two-wheeler sold. So broadly, we don't know, right? I mean, this is what we're kind of hearing in terms of what we hear from like other guys who are suppliers and competitors. Now, if that is the case, we need to see, right? Which is we don't want to get into an industry that has a big revenue pool and no profit pool. So we need to figure out kind of, and that's what we're exploring. Paul and his team are exploring it actively, but we're basically exploring whether, because for us, the revenue pool only makes sense if it comes with a good profit pool. Otherwise, we're not going to get VC funded and raise $1 billion to kind of fund something like this. So we need to explore that. If we get to a solution where we think that there's a profit pool, then we will jump into it.
Okay. And so just one last question from my side. In the earlier articulation, you obviously had a PBT margin target of that, 10%, and which you are kind of comfortably, consistently doing much above that, even with the negative operating leverage. So how are you thinking about it now? Is there a change? And obviously with this new product addition, the growth will be much better. So how should one look at it? Any thoughts there?
Correct. We should increase it. So I'm saying we should increase it to 14% in 3 years.
Okay. That is very helpful, and wish you all the best for that journey. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Janaki Raman from Franklin Templeton. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Morning, Vellayan and team.
Morning,
One
Janaki.
question on the cycle. Yeah, morning. So one question on the cycle exports. So you've been saying that the cost handicap versus the Chinese and the Taiwanese exporters is what is holding you back. Now, what is the reason for this cost position? Is it the labor cost, productivity, or something else? And how do you propose to overcome this?
Paul, will take it.
Yeah. The only way we can explain this is that, we've over the past 2 years done a significant amount of import substitution. We've been at it. At that time there was no pandemic, etc. But we said, that we have to make our supply chain much more robust, and the lead time has to get reduced. So we started, a lot of indigenization of the imports that we were doing, and I'm happy to say that we have substantially, improved that score, in terms of this. So today, if you're looking at on a normal sense, what we import are the derailleurs, rest of the things, bulk of that we've been able to indigenize. That's point one. Point two, it also talks about, premiumization of your products in terms of aluminium, etc., which we are on that journey in terms of moving forward. We put our own capacity, I was speaking earlier, and we'll be, dealing with that internally in the phase one as we proceed in our venture for exports. Third is that we also have a plant in Sri Lanka, actually, which we are leveraging much more towards exports in terms of getting to different countries, and de-risking the part of the business, actually, between the domestic demand and the export demand. That's third. Fourth is there a very important quantum of capability building, which we are now doing through the practice of lean. That's number one. And number two is also, taking on some domestic products with export line quality, so that we get used to manufacturing this kind of bikes in a very large fashion. As far as capacity is concerned, between two plants, we have capacity. We have to build some vendor capability and capacity, which we are at the current moment, on that journey. So all this put together on a phase-wise way, as we have planned, we should order as well to be able to give the necessary trust in a continuous manner in exports. I hope I've answered your question.
Sure. And when do you hope to reach cost parity with the Chinese and Taiwanese first of all?
So the cost parity is, in different manner, depends on which markets are you looking at and which products are you looking at. What we are looking at is to look at products that allow us a sustained amount of margin, where we are not, getting boxed between Taiwan and China, much more from China. You must also bear in mind that there are a lot of anti-dumping duties on China in different markets. So would that allow us an opportunity as a new entrant in terms of making inroads in those markets? There is also an additional opportunity that is cropping up in the China Plus One strategy that Mr. Vellayan talked about earlier. So therefore, people are looking at broad-basing their supply base in terms of this. And India is the second largest market of bicycles after China. So that also gives opportunities to all bicycle manufacturers in India in terms of the way that they plan it, the way that they show their intent in getting after the export market. There is also a lot of talk going on between the government and the industry now in terms of looking at how to build this component capability in India with scale. And so therefore there are a lot of discussions that are going on with people, who are not currently in bicycle business but in automotive business, etc., to manufacture some of these components. And some of the global leaders in some of the components being invited to set up a manufacturing base in India with government help and all. So there's a lot of rethink from the government's end to look at this sector in terms of giving it a thrust for export. So premium bikes for export, let's say. The other opportunity that has come through is with e-bikes, that is bicycles, that are electrified in some sense. So we just launched our first product in the domestic market just a day back. We have to watch for that response. And then we are working around different markets that could we make a big thrust with e-bikes.
Sure, thanks. And Mr. Vellayan, one question to you. So I heard your description of the electric two-wheeler market in terms of profits. Do you think the electric three-wheeler market will be a bit different with a reasonably attractive available?
Yes, that is definitely our belief. And even in the two-wheeler market, all I said is we're studying it. But definitely we do think that three-wheeler is going to be better. But even two-wheeler, we're still studying it at this stage.
And where exactly is your three-wheeler product development now? Is it the specs, design, prototypes, are they frozen?
So that obviously we won't share too much now. We'll just have to wait till the market till the product kind of gets out, which like Paul gave you the timeline earlier. So we'll just have to wait for that.
Good. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from the line of Rohit Ohri from Progressive Shares. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Few questions related to Shanthi Gears. The pending order book of Shanthi Gears has been swelling up, which is around 42% on the upside at around 235 odd crores or so. So can you help us understand that what percentage of the order book is for manufacturing and what percentage is for the services business?
Oh, that will predominantly be manufacturing. Maybe predominantly manufacturing. We'll try and get you that split, but a large chunk of it will be manufacturing.
Okay. And if I were to break the order book into short, medium, and long cycles, short being less than 6 months, medium being 6 to 12, and long being more than 12, what would be the breakup if you can help us with that? If you can share the ratios for that.
Yeah, we generally don't give that kind of breakup to the external world. But in terms of filling the lines, it's not be an issue at all. We are reasonably covered in terms of sales for the near term.
Okay, so by end of FY22, will you be able to kind of clear this pending order book that you have?
Yeah, I mean, there'll be ins and outs, yeah, but gradually, yes, we'll come pretty close to that.
Okay. And on the margins front, I know you don't like to give guidance, but will you try to reach the pre-pandemic levels if I can be lucky over there?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, yes. Why not?
Okay. So this order book, and if we try to understand that the synergies that might come, and if the management thinks that you'll be able to blend in the synergies between Tube Shanthi and CG Power, do you think that the pending order book can swell by another 30-40 odd %?
That's difficult to put a number to it, but they are under the discussion. They are being explored.
Okay.
So once we have some good clarity on that, we will give you those details.
Okay, sir. So any new product or product launches in pipeline which you would like to share for Shanthi Gears?
I think they're doing the segmental view that they've talked about. And, kind of, so that continues to look at kind of the things. But, some of the areas, similar to what we've talked about in the past, right, kind of in terms of the areas for growth.
We'll continue to look at new industry segments, but may not be so different in terms of new products.
Okay. And sir, if I were to ask one more, in terms of the raw material prices and their fluctuations, how does it happen with Shanthi? I mean, like the revision of prices, how does it take it on a quarterly basis or half yearly or 1 yearly contract basis?
Yeah, see, normally the way it happens is when the quote is submitted, a reasonable factor towards inflation is already baked in.
Okay.
On top of that, wherever possible, the price variation clause will also help.
Okay.
But there may be a certain percentage where it may not be possible to do so. So that's how that's what we will absorb through our efficiency.
And in recent times, were you able to take any price hikes?
I mean, this is a custom built gear business, right? So it varies from order to order. So there is no general norm which is applicable here. It depends upon case to case.
Okay, sir. Thank you for the answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that would be our last question for today. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Anupam Gupta for closing comments.
Thanks, Aman. Vellayan, if allowed, I just wanted to ask one small question. On your TI2, you have invested in quite a few already, and you are willing to put up more in a few startups. So in the medium to long term, how big do you see this compared to TI1 and TI3? Or would it be, let's say, small, at least for the foreseeable future in the overall contribution sort of way?
So we've always said that, it's not going to have any significant effect on the short term and results. It's more building platforms for the medium and long term. So I'd say that you have to start thinking at least 5 years plus when you start thinking about TI2. And only at that point will the numbers start getting material in any way. But you just think about this as seeding the next set of businesses that can be significant businesses for TI in the future. It's not a near-term or short-term thing.
Right. That sounds reasonable. So thanks a lot. And I'll hand it back to you for any closing comments that you might have.
Yeah, I think that's very good. Thank you. We continue to be encouraged, overall by the environment. And so thanks everybody for joining, and look forward to catching up with you again next quarter. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Anupam.
Thanks, Vellayan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of IIFL Securities Limited, that concludes today's call. Thank you all for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.